I decided to take a video which I had posted on the UPNS merger channel and also include it on the Rail Families United channel because of the fact that Jamie Boychuk and Michael Farkouh were two key players in the death of conductor trainee Jason Clooney. And he's really the focus of the Rail Families United channel, which does a dissection of a rail worker death investigation. But Jamie Boychuk was former CN Rail general manager for the Alberta and Prairie subregions when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. Now, even though Jamie Boychuk went on to work at CSX as chief operations officer, the fact is that right now, as this video is being done in October of 2025, activist investor Ancora is now pushing to have Jamie Boychuk become the next CEO of CSX in the United States. And I think that, given all the skeletons of Jamie Boychuk, because there's no way, in my opinion, that these men would not have known that CN was violating numerous laws when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. I just simply do not think that the likes of Jamie Boychuk or even Jim Vena, which Ancora is also pushing to move to a larger role, as Ancora would like Jim Vena, who was chief operations officer at CN when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. He is currently the Union Pacific CEO. And so Ancora is pushing for Jim Vena to become the CEO of a merged Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern company. And so these activist investors like Ancora pushing for, these people to become CEOs like Jamie Boychuk and Jim Vena and give them a larger footprint in the U.S. rail industry. In my opinion, U.S. taxpayers, the U.S. public, and Canadian taxpayers, everybody has a right to know about the skeletons of these men. Because in my opinion, again, there is no way that the likes of Jim Vena, Jamie Boychuk, or Michael Farkouh would not have known that conductor trainee, that CN Rail was violating numerous laws when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. And that would include the Railway Safety Act, Section 20, as well as the Railway Employee Qualification Standards Regulation, specifically Section 5, and potentially numerous provisions of the Labor Code having to do with outdated and deadly training materials and on and on and on. And so I will be including this video on Jamie Boychuk and Michael Farkouh on the Rail Families United YouTube channel. And I will also be including the Jim Vena video on this channel as well, because these guys are such big players, in my opinion, in matters pertaining to the death of conductor trainee Jason Clooney, that they really need to be included on both channels. Today we're going to continue with our series on the players, looking specifically at Jamie Boychuk, who is former CN Rail general manager and former CSX chief operations manager. I'm also going to be including this video on the UPNS merger YouTube channel, because right now Ancora, who is a player in the UPNS merger, is also trying to behind the scenes work at getting Jamie Boychuk to become the next CEO of CSX. And so people need to understand exactly who Jamie Boychuk is and what role he played in fake qualifications and death cover-ups. We're also going to be looking in this video at Michael Farkouh, who was the former CN Rail VP of Safety and Sustainability when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. As with everything in these videos, if you see a box with the red line around it. Any arrows, underlining in red, green, whatever, that is stuff that I have added in. So what I need you to notice here is that this particular report cover is from a Transport Canada report pertaining to the death of conductor trainee Jason Clooney on November 18th, 2013. And it says, the third arrow down here on the left says, near Crooked River, Saskatchewan. Keep that name in mind, Crooked River, Saskatchewan. This is the final report which I obtained via Access to Information, and it was dated September 12th, 2014, and the health and safety officer who wrote this report was a guy by the name of Tyrone Kowalski. All right, so on page 12 of this report by Transport Canada's Health and Safety Officer, Tyrone Kowalski, you can see here the names of some of the players he interviewed after the death of conductor trainee Jason Clooney. The first person that he interviewed after interviewing the crew, which was on the ground, the other 3 crew members the day Jason died, was the general manager overseeing the area. He was part in CN Rail. There's the eastern region and there's the western region. This guy would have been part of the western region, and he was based out of Edmonton, Alberta. Now, it says the general manager provides general oversight of the train operations in the territory assigned to him. The investigating officer, the investigating health and safety officer met the general manager at Humboldt immediately after completing crew interviews. So that would have been most likely on November 19th, 2013. Then they've got, and folks, you notice how they blank out the names here and phone numbers and stuff, because when there's a death in the rail industry, believe me, the government of Canada loves to rely on anonymity. It takes a lot of work to find the names of the players and whatever. In some cases, it's taken me years to find some names of players in all of this. So anyways, there's always a way to get to this information if you are persistent enough. And it wasn't just, in my opinion, Jason who was being fake qualified. He worked, and that's my opinion, based on information that I was told. But my own child was a conductor trainee at the time that Jason Clooney was a conductor trainee. And so these guys, you want to fake qualify my kid and put their lives at risk and the lives of other rail workers? Buddy, you're on my shit list, and I will do what I need to do to expose you. And that is not a place anybody wants to be. I don't care if it takes me years. You will be exposed for your role in all of this. Anyways, the VP of Safety and Sustainability, again, was a guy by the name of Michael Farkouh. And again, his name is blocked out, but I could find that online as to who he was. That one was fairly easy to find. And so again, this is all taken from a Transport Canada Health and Safety Officer report. This particular report is 80 pages long. So it's an additional report to the Transportation Safety Board report, which I analyzed in the brainwashing series. That report was only like 20 some pages long, and it took me over 14 videos, I think, to explain all the lies in that one. And there's a lot of lies and deceptions in this report too. But for now, just keep this information in mind as to where I got it and how I came to the conclusions that I came to. Okay, there's a couple of places that provide an executive bio for Jamie Boychuk. CSX had one online, but there's also this one from Equilar, which is, I guess, an executive atlas. And for Jamie Boychuk, if you look at the part that I've underlined there, it says, prior to joining CSX, this was when Jamie Boychuk, he was the Chief Operations Officer at CSX for a while, and now he's, if Ancora, activist investor Ancora gets its way, Jamie Boychuk may be the next CEO of CSX. And so, I have a lot of issues with the ethics of Ancora. And for that, I will direct you to the video I did specifically on the UP-NS merger YouTube channel pertaining to Ancora. But let's move on. Prior to joining CSX, Boychuk spent 20 years at Canadian National Railway. He served as a general manager of the Alberta and Prairie sub-regions, ensuring that safe, cost-efficient yard and train performance were delivered according to the company's operational plan and customer expectations. By the time I'm done with this, you're going to see what I think of the operational excellence of the likes of Jamie Boychuk. The other person that appeared on the page with the names blanked out in Health and Safety Officer Tyrone Kowalski's report was a guy by the name, it was the VP of Safety and Sustainability. And in 2013, the guy who was appointed to that role in April of 2013 would have been Michael Farkouh. And he was, appointed vice president April 2013, and he has had extensive experience within the operations and manufacturing fields of the industry. So if you understand operations, you should understand that a critical role in operations is proper training, as opposed to fake qualifications of your frontline rail workers. All right, so this is that page 12 again from the Health and Safety Officer report. And before we get into the information on Jamie Boychuk, where it says Western Region Office there, it doesn't mean that Jamie Boychuk was the general manager for the Western region. It just means that he was out of that office in Edmonton. I guess that was the main office for the Western region. So again, the health and safety officer met with the general manager at Humboldt immediately after completing crew interviews. So let's look at whether or not that was indeed Jamie Boychuk. Okay, so if you look at this particular screen print, it comes from LinkedIn, and it is the profile of Jamie Boychuk. Next to his name there on the left, I kind of blanked out with the blue box his picture. You can see part of it, but I blanked it out in case there's a copyright issue there. But this is a public record. It's online for everybody to see. And so I can see here that under CN, it states that if you look at the second block with all the arrows pointing to it there, it says General Manager from April of 2011 to March of 2014 out of the Edmonton, Alberta office. So that would match what we saw on page 12 of the HSO report, showing that that particular General Manager was out of Edmonton. Now, conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed at CN Rail on November 18th, 2013. So that would match that block with that particular date where that second arrow goes over to the general manager block. And so any operational excellence going on at the time would have been under Jamie Boychuk when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed, because Jamie Boychuk was general manager overseeing the Alberta and Prairie subregions, and at the same time, the former CN Rail Chief Operations Officer would have been Jim Vena. That man is now the Union Pacific CEO, the man that they would like to put, that Ancora, activist investor Ancora, would like to put at the head of a merged UP and NS rail company. And I've said it time and time again, in my opinion, these men do not belong in boardrooms, they belong in courtrooms. But we can clearly see here, per Jamie Boychuk's own LinkedIn profile, that he was general manager of the, out of Alberta, out of Edmonton, Alberta, at the time that conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. Okay, so I mentioned in a previous video that when I was preparing a home office during COVID for my husband, and I was cleaning out my child's room, behold, I found some discarded materials. And one of those was a CN Rail operating manual, along with some of the trainee training guides and whatever. So, you know what? Abandoned in my home, discarded, that makes them mine. They're garbage as far as anybody else was concerned. And so since I was doing some research, I thought I would keep this trash. Okay, so again, on the right, the middle screen here is the LinkedIn profile for Jamie Boychuk. And you can see that in this discarded CN operating manual, under timetables, it states here that for the Western region, the Prairie subregion, and that was effective in March of 2017, that the Prairie subregion was being overseen. At the very bottom there, you can see the name Jamie Boychuk. Well, by then, Jamie Boychuk, even though he was still overseeing the Prairie subregion, he had moved to the Winnipeg, Manitoba office. But he was still overseeing the Prairie subregion, according to this. And I'll tell you, one thing that I find is that when somebody gets killed, maybe it's just me, but there seems to be a switcheroo of people moving around. You know, while the investigation into a death or a serious derailment might be going on, I find that's when people seem to move around in the rail industry. Either they change jobs slightly, or they change locations, or they outright change companies or even countries. That's just my general observation, but I think it's a valid one. But anyways, you can see here that even though in 2017, which would be the first block here under CN, under this profile, it says that from April 2014 through May of 2017, or March 2017, Jamie Boychuk was still in charge of the Prairie subregion, but now he had moved to Manitoba, to the Winnipeg office. So, still in charge of it all, still putting out his operational excellence at CN Rail, along with Jim Venna and Michael Farkouh, or whatever his name is. Now, if you look here at the very top here, and again, this is taken from the same CN Rail operating manual under timetables, and these were effective March 1st, 2017. On pages 5 and 6 of that section, you can see here at the top it says territory responsibility, and you've got the general manager is Jamie Boychuk, and you can see here the different names. You know, again, these people were like, they may not have been there when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed, and by now he was in Saskatchewan. But if you look down at the long arrow here where it says Saskatchewan division, okay, and then they have all of the names of the subdivisions that fell under the Saskatchewan territory, and the green arrow here continues the Saskatchewan division. And if you, on the following page for that territory, and you can see the green arrow there points to Tisdale. The subdivision where Jason Clooney was killed was called the Tisdale subdivision. And so that was absolutely being overseen by Jamie Boychuk when he was general manager when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. And he was still overseeing that region clearly in 2017. This again is a page taken from that discarded CN Rail operating manual, which I found in my child's bedroom. And on page 54 here, you can see what locations were included in the Tisdale subdivision. And you can see the long red arrow there towards the bottom shows Murphy's. That is the work location where they were at when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. So I think that CN may have abandoned that subdivision after this death, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But anyways, again, this is a page that it's the first half of a page on page 54 from that operating manual, clearly showing that this territory was absolutely under Jamie Boychuk when he was overseeing the Prairie and the Alberta and Prairie subdivisions or subregions. All right, now this is page 11, or a section of page 11 from the Health and Safety Officer report. And if you look at what was provided on page 11, it says, train masters do test operating employees during the performance of their duties in the field to assess competency in compliance with operating rules, including switch handling. Note the next sentence. The trainee in this case was not tested. Now that's a very interesting issue because conductor trainee Jason Clooney, when he was killed, was on his 58th trip. To be a qualified conductor only required 45 field tours. So that would include both yard and field tours, 15 in an actual yard and 30 on the line. So we knew from the OJT witness statement that Jason had 0 yard training. That was in the OJT witness statement question and answer number 31, as we saw in previous videos. And I had provided the documentation on that. But one has to wonder, why was conductor trainee Jason Clooney, first of all, on his 58th trip, if only 45 were required to be a qualified conductor? And CN knew that he had problems with switching activities and with working independently. But that's exactly what he was doing the evening that he was killed, working alone, in the dark, unsupervised, in unfamiliar territory, in violation of SOR 87-150, Section 5, a regulation which is absolutely enforceable in court. So the issue is here, why was there not procedures monitoring for regulatory compliance, which is PMRCing, for conductor trainee Jason Clooney when he was on his 58th trip? Why had he not been PMRC'd already for switch handling? Was it because of what I suspect may have been happening at CN Rail, that we bring in a ton of conductor trainees, we potentially fake qualify them, in my humble opinion, then we make them work as cheap labor because they're on probation, they get supposedly fake qualified, in my opinion, they get qualified and then they're on probation for 6 months. And then a whole whack of them seem to get let go. They're just not good enough for CN. And we don't give any extra training, we just fire them. Was CN churning the workforce on purpose, using conductor trainees as cheap labor because they'd be worth half or less than half the cost of a regular union employee, a regular qualified conductor with actual experience? And, the fact that they're working alone in violation of the law would tend to further solidify that suspicion that I had. And it would be, I think, a most interesting audit to do, to look at how many conductor trainees, going back I would say to at least the Mackyard incident, but I would say even earlier than that. I would go back to 1995 and see how many conductor trainees CN Rail hired, how many were supposedly qualified, and then let go within a year or right before their probationary period was over. Because if CN is bringing in a ton of conductor trainees, and let's say it was fake qualifying them, just my opinion, if they're being fake qualified, who cares if they don't get all the required training? Who cares if you don't have yard training or you're not being PMRC'd when you should have been PMRC'd, or procedures monitoring for regulatory compliance? You should have been tested perhaps a very long time ago when only 45 tours were required, but yet he was on his 58th and he had not been PMRC'd? That is what this report is basically saying. The trainee in this case was not tested for switch handling. Kind of a big issue. And you know, it's like with everything. When I say there's ways at getting to information, there are ways to get to information. Because, you know, when somebody's on probation, I think they're still paying union dues. So CN would have to keep records of who they paid, and you could get to those records through the Canada Revenue Agency. I worked at the Canada Revenue Agency, and although they supposedly keep only 7 years of records, in actuality, they archive a whole lot more records than that, and you can go back a lot more years than just the 7 years when it comes to people's taxation. And so anybody who's paying union dues, those union dues are tax deductible. And so if you're paying union dues to the TCRC and you were an employee of CN Rail during any of those years, you know, a good lawyer should be able to get to this information and do some proper audits. Shouldn't be that hard to do. Just my humble opinion. But hey, what do I know? But I seriously think it would make a wonderful audit to look at how many newly qualified conductors were actually let go just prior to their probationary period being over with. Because that sure would tend to show fake qualifying and the churning of the workforce. Why would you be getting rid of people that you've supposedly spent so much money training rather than giving them a little bit of extra training to get them to where they need to be as employees? Maybe it's because it might be a whole lot more profitable for CN Rail to fake qualify and get rid of them, bring in a new bunch, fake qualify them, churn the workforce, keep going, la-di-da-di-da. And that would also, you know, I'm an MA in finance, folks. And companies like CN Rail and CP Rail, they own their own training centers. Some of them own hotels. And so that would also, you know, if you got to bring in all these conductor trainees, you got to lodge them somewhere when they're having their class training. And so if you lodge them in your hotels and your convention centers, well, then that's propping up that side of the balance sheet for these companies also. So it could be a very profitable thing to bring in a bunch of conductor trainees, fake qualify them, get rid of them, churn the workforce, bring in a new bunch, put them up at our convention, hotel centers, give them meals, whatever, prop up that side of the balance sheet, get rid of them. Who would know the difference as to what is going on? It took me years to look into a whole lot of issues and unravel a lot of information. And that, in my opinion, is absolutely what was going on at CN Rail. And if it was going on at CN, because there was only basically CN and CP, I would not be surprised to see this was going on also at CP Rail. Because a lot of these rail executives go from CN to CP and whatever over all those years. And both CN and CP used to be crown corporations of the government of Canada. And let's face it, rail executives chat, they have lunch, they discuss operations, right? Just my humble opinion as to what might have been going on at CN Rail. Earlier in this video, we saw that Jamie Boychuk, who was the former CN Rail General Manager and the former CSX Chief Operations Manager, might become the next CEO at CSX because activist investor Ancora is hoping to see him in that position. And that's in spite of me having gone in person to Ancora in April, I believe it was the last week of April 2024, to warn them specifically about the operational excellence of Jamie Boychuk while he was at CN Rail. And folks, rail unions are already lining up to oppose Boychuk as the next CSX CEO. And you know, I would refer you folks, if you want to know more about the operational excellence at CN Rail under Jamie Boychuk, under Jim Vena, who is the Union Pacific CEO. And, you know, it's, again, Ancora, who is pushing to have Jim Vena become the CEO of a merged UP-NS company because Ancora considers Jim Vena the greatest railroader in the world. Well, I would beg to disagree. And for more on that, I would again encourage you to go to the UP-NS merger YouTube channel and look specifically at my presentations on Jim Vena and activist investor Ancora, because I have huge issues with Ancora, especially since they were provided with so much documentation pertaining to the operational excellence of the likes of Jamie Boychuk and Jim Vena. And I got to tell you folks, in my opinion, I would have zero problem with seeing Ancora go to a valuation of zero, because in my opinion, that's what they deserve if they keep pushing for these guys who, in my opinion, belong in courtrooms to become executives at key Class 1 rail carriers. These are serious, serious issues. And the fact that there are unions already lining up against Jamie Boychuk, just as they did last year when Ancora tried to put Jamie Boychuk as Chief Operations Officer at Norfolk Southern, where his buddy Claude Mongeau was chairman of the board at the time. And Claude Mongeau was CEO at CN Rail when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. And so when I say that there are at least 5 Class 1 rail carriers impacted by all the issues raised in my videos, I am serious. We are talking about people who are at the highest levels in these 5 Class 1 rail carriers. And so here we have, you know, a screen print from the American Train Dispatchers Association. And this was dated April 21st, 2025, where they are opposing Ancora's CSX efforts. And it says here, the American Train Dispatchers Association strongly opposes the latest campaign by activist investor Ancora Holdings to seize control of CSX transportation, remove current CEO Joe Henricks, and install former CSX executive Jamie Boychuk as his replacement. They're not the only ones who have a problem with that. I have a huge problem with that, and so do other unions. So Jamie Boychuk, in my opinion, and Jim Vena, again, in my opinion, and there's more, folks. There's a lot more than that. I will be adding to my Players series on both the YouTube channel UP-NS Merger and the sister channel on YouTube, Rail Families United. And don't think that, you know, because it's not on UP-NS Merger, that you shouldn't be looking at what is on the YouTube channel, Rail Families United, because those two are so intertwined as far as all the issues and the players. And so I would encourage you to look at the playlists on both YouTube channels. It's just that YouTube does not allow me to duplicate a specific video and put it on 2 channels. You have to modify it, whatever. So it's just a whole lot of extra work for me. I cannot put all the videos on 2 channels. You know, I'm up to over 50 videos already, And by the time I'm done, all the issues I need to address via these two YouTube channels as far as the rail industry. And again, we're talking 5 Class 1 rail carriers now. But I figure I'll have over 200 videos, folks, to delve into all these issues. And so it's a lot of information. It's long overdue. The overhaul of the rail industry in both Canada and the US is long, long overdue. And so is the bringing to accountability of a lot of rail executives who, in my opinion, again, do not belong in boardrooms. They belong in courtrooms for criminal negligence causing death, death cover-ups, fake qualifications, whatever. Just my opinion. You are free to form your own. Another one of the unions that is lining up to oppose Jamie Boychuk as CSX Chief Executive Officer is TCU/IAM and the Brotherhood of Railroad Carmen, or Railway Carmen. And again, you can see here in red where they're basically saying we're not going to be going back, and we've seen the devastation that was caused basically under the likes of Jamie Boychuk. So you think maybe the unions might know something? You think rail workers might know something about the operational excellence of some of these players? You better believe it. All right. You know, when you look at the players, Jamie Boychuk, who was the former CN Rail general manager for the Alberta and Prairie subregions, and the former CSX chief operations officer, and then also Michael Farkouh, who was the former CN Rail VP of Safety and Sustainability, and also Jim Vena, former CN Rail chief operations officer when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed, the current CEO at Union Pacific. You know, the issue of fake qualifications, folks, and the operational excellence under these guys. You fake qualify my own child, and I will do what I need to do to expose. You're part of death cover-ups, as in my opinion, these guys would have been. I will do what I need to do to expose that. And again, I would encourage you folks, go look at the entire brainwashing series, the deadly training materials series, both those playlists. I mean, those two, there's over 20 videos just in those two series on Rail Families United on that YouTube channel. So the thing that I have always asked is, was conductor trainee Jason Clooney being qualified the day he was killed? Transport Canada needs to release the last 5 pages of the conductor witness statement, which it has refused to release to this day. There is no way, in my opinion, that Jamie Boychuk, Michael Farkouh, and Jim Vena did not know that CN Rail was violating numerous laws when conductor trainee Jason Clooney was killed. There's just no way, especially not with decades in the rail industry. And as such, I consider them very much part of this death cover-up. You know, why would they not want to release the last 5 pages of the supervising conductor witness statement? They can't argue that it's because, oh, it might have some gruesome stuff in there. No, that supervising conductor was over, you know, about 2/3 of a mile, half a mile to 2/3 of a mile from conductor trainee Jason Clooney when he was killed. And it was the pilot locomotive engineer who went and found Jason and then informed the supervising conductor that Jason had died. So I don't think the supervising conductor even got to get close to conductor trainee Jason Clooney from the witness statements. So what are they hiding in the last 5 pages of that witness statement? Could it be that they were fake qualifying conductor trainee Jason Clooney the day he was killed, as some certainly suspected in the field, as far as other newly qualified conductors or conductor trainees who knew or knew of conductor trainee Jason Clooney. So, you know, again, Jason Clooney had 0 yard training. That came out in the OJT witness statement in question number 31, as previously provided in other videos. So if he had 0-yard training and he was being qualified, that would be proof solid that CN Rail was fake qualifying conductor trainees. Could that be why Transport Canada doesn't want to release the last 5 pages of that witness statement? Or the Government of Canada? Because Transport Canada, the Transportation Safety Board, and the Occupational Health and Safety Tribunal of Canada, in my opinion, were all rail partners in crime, helping to hide numerous violations of so many laws, potentially for decades. So by releasing those 5 pages, if indeed conductor trainee Jason Clooney was being qualified the day he was killed, that would be most incriminating not only for CN, but also for the Government of Canada, and especially Transport Canada, which, given fake qualifications could be shown going back to at least 2007 with the Mackyard incident, that doesn't look too good for Transport Canada, if that's indeed what those 5 pages would show in the supervising conductor witness statement. So CN and Transport Canada, you need to release those last 5 pages of the supervising conductor witness statement. And there's also the issue of deadly training slide number 53 and other deadly/outdated training materials and or test questions that were also under the operational excellence of Jamie Boychuk, Michael Farkouh, and Jim Venna. And again, that series on deadly training materials, I think there's 9 videos for that one. The one with all the lies in the Transportation Safety Board, that one I think has 14 videos. And I've only started just scratching the surface on some of the Health and Safety Officer report, which is 80 pages long. I haven't gotten into that one really yet. A lot of lies in that one too, and deceptions as far as I'm concerned. Now, in my opinion, these men belong not in boardrooms, but in courtrooms for criminal negligence causing death. How many have been injured and or killed under the operational excellence of Jamie Boychuk, Michael Farkouh, Jim Venna, and so many others who now play key roles in perhaps as many as 5 Class 1 rail carriers operating in the United States and Canada. And those 5 would be CSX, Norfolk Southern, Union Pacific, CN Rail, and CPKC. The players go from one company to another, one country to another, and I haven't even discussed all the players yet. There's going to be a lot more videos coming out as far as the players. So keep an eye on that playlist on both the UP&S merger YouTube channel and the Rail Families United YouTube channel, because the list of players, folks, is massive as far as the implications of all this for the rail industry in both Canada and the US. Okay, so if you want to see more on the operational excellence of the likes of Jamie Boychuk, Jim Venna, Michael Farkouh, again, go to the Rail Families United YouTube channel and the UP&S Merger YouTube channel, and look for playlists entitled Brainwashing. That one goes through all of the Transportation Safety Board report pertaining to the death of conductor trainee Jason Clooney. It's only a 22, maybe 25 page report. It took me 14 videos to expose all the lies in that one. Again, that would have been under the operational excellence of these guys. And, also look at the Deadly Training series. And everything that you see there would have been under the operational excellence of Jamie Boychuk, Jim Venna, who was the CEO at Union Pacific, and Michael Farkouh, who was at the time VP of Safety and Sustainability. And I think he's still at CN Rail. But anyways, to allow Jamie Boychuk to become the CEO of CSX, in my opinion, that would be a massive, massive mistake by the U.S. government. And if Ancora keeps pushing for that, I think Ancora, in my opinion, needs to be brought to accountability also because of what they know of Jamie Boychuk and the files that I provided to them last April of 2024. You can't be, just because you got billions of dollars, it doesn't mean that you should be taking over the rail industry just because you're an activist investor and you think you know better than everybody else. So again, go to UP&S Merger YouTube channel and look specifically at my presentation on activist investor and Cora, because we don't need that type of operational excellence in the financial sector either, in my humble opinion. Just my opinion as an MA in finance. You're free to form your own. So on that note, have a great day, and I will see you on the next one.